Right then guys, how's it going and welcome back to your football predictions. There is so much football going on right now. At the weekend we had the Premier League, Champions League yesterday and tonight, Europa League tomorrow. The Premier League starts up again on Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, and then there's more Champions League on Tuesday. There is so much football coming to the end of the season. And again, we are going to be looking at the Premier League for this weekend. But before we get into that, we'll take a quick look at the predictions from the last predictions video I did, which was a couple of weeks ago, so I won't go too into it. Long story short, I got no correct scores as always, but we had a few people this week who actually got 2 correct scores. They were Notorious, Oscar, Mr. Football and Matthew. So big up to these 4. They have won this week's prediction video. I've put all of their YouTube links down in the description and I've subscribed to all of them, so make sure you go and check them out as well. And I want to say a big thank you to everyone who got involved. There was loads of predictions last week, and especially to these 4 who got the most correct scores. And if you want to be shouted out in next week's predictions video, then make sure to get your comments down below, and I will go through all of the predictions and shout out the winners in next week's video. As I mentioned, the Premier League football this weekend actually starts on the Friday night at 8 o'clock with Leicester taking on Newcastle. So Leicester are currently sitting 7th in the Premier League. They are joint points with Wolves, who are sitting in 8th. And then just 1 point below them are Everton and Watford. So there's 4 teams there fighting for that 7th place spot. And dependent on what happens in the FA Cup, which is Man City versus Watford, if Man City were to win that game, then the 7th place spot would go up for a Europa League spot. I mean, if Watford win it, then they get Europa League football from the FA Cup. But if Man City win it, it's 7th place. So like I said, Watford are included in that. Leicester currently sitting in 7th at the minute. Wolves and Everton. So there's a big fight on for 7th place. It could mean nothing depending on what happens in the FA Cup. But it could mean a Europa League spot. Which is why Leicester are going to want to continue winning their games through till the end of the season. Leicester have actually won their last 4 Premier League games in a row, including their most recent win at the weekend where they beat Huddersfield 4-1. So they're on some seriously good form, overtaking Wolves to get into 7th place. They have played 1 more game than Wolves at the minute, but they've set themselves up in the place they want to be, and as I say, they just need to keep winning. As for Newcastle, we are currently sitting in 15th place and are 7 points ahead of the relegation zone. 7 points ahead of Cardiff, who are currently sitting in 18th place. Cardiff do actually have a game in hand, so if they were to win that, that would bring it down to 4 points. And Cardiff, and we'll talk about this later, Cardiff have actually got 2 games this week. So they could really change things up if they were to win some games, which means although the 7-point gap for Newcastle is a decent amount with 5 to 6 games to go till the end of the season, it's not certain yet. And because of that, Newcastle need to start picking up some points again. In Newcastle's last 5 games, we went and lost away to West Ham. We then came back from a 2-0 down to beat Everton 3-2, which was fantastic. Then got the draw away against Bournemouth. Last minute goal from Richie was another really good goal. Since then, this week, or the week gone, lost against Arsenal away. You know, it was going to be a tough one there. And then lost against Crystal Palace 1-0 at home, which, well, I called it 3 points lost. I think we should have at least had a point. We had so many chances. I felt like we were in control for a lot of the game. And just a daft challenge from Yedlin got Crystal Palace a penalty, and they put it away. So that was a really disappointing game. I think it's going to be a tough one against Leicester. And I went to the away fixture against Leicester last year, and that was pretty much the game where we secured our place in the Premier League last year. So a win on Friday night could potentially do that again this season. As for my prediction for this one, again, being completely unbiased, I'd love to see Newcastle win on the Friday night on the telly, potentially, and pretty much secure Premier League football for next season. But at the same time, as I mentioned, Leicester want that Europa League spot. They're sitting in pole position right now in 7th place in the league with 3 other teams breathing down their neck. And although it's not certain because the FA Cup final hasn't happened yet, Leicester are going to want to win. And they've won their last 4 Premier League games in a row. So they're on a roll. So 1-1. I'm hoping we can put in a good fight because it was disappointing against Crystal Palace. But at the same time, Leicester are a good side and they're at home. I'm gonna go 1-1. Next up on the Saturday at 3 o'clock, we have got Burnley taking on Cardiff. So Burnley are currently sitting 14th in the league. They are 8 points ahead or away from the relegation zone, which is again 8 points ahead of Cardiff, who they're playing. Burnley's form, last 5 games, they actually lost 3 games in a row, but then won their last 2 games in a row, including their most recent win at the weekend against Bournemouth when they won 3-1, which is a good win, because Bournemouth are a good side. And again, Burnley are another team down there in this kind of relegation group who are trying to get as many points as possible to push away from Cardiff and that relegation zone. As for Cardiff, I've mentioned them a few times already now. As I say, they are currently sitting 18th in the league, down in the relegation zone. The closest teams to them are Southampton and Brighton, who are currently 5 points ahead. So Cardiff have got a very big job to do this weekend and on Tuesday night. They are playing Burnley on Saturday and then they also play Brighton on Tuesday. So they're playing Burnley, who, as I mentioned, are kind of in that relegation group, and then Brighton, who are just 5 points ahead of them at the moment. So it's 2 very big games for Cardiff. And as I talked about, Burnley are currently 8 points away, Newcastle are currently 7 points away. If Cardiff were to win against Burnley on Saturday and against Brighton on Tuesday, everything would get very, very close very, very quickly. So it's down to Cardiff if they can do it or not. I mean, in their last 5 games, they have lost 4 and won 1. So their recent form in the Prem hasn't been great. They need to turn that round very quickly. I mean, the most recent game they had lost against Man City, which no one's really blaming them for because it's Man City. As for a prediction and a scoreline on this one, there's some big pressure on Cardiff. There's big pressure, full stop. They're in the relegation zone, they need to get out. But the next 2 games against 2 teams who are in that relegation group with them would be 2 massive wins. However, despite the need for points, their form still hasn't been great. As I say, Burnley with a fantastic win over Bournemouth, and without sounding what can I say? I mean, as a Newcastle fan, I'm hoping Burnley are going to win, basically, because I don't want us to get relegated. So, 2-1 Burnley. They'll be on a high after the last few wins, and they're at home. So, we'll back Burnley. Moving on to the Sunday, I'm trying to pick a game from every day, pretty much. But on the Sunday at 4:30, we have got Liverpool taking on Chelsea. So, Liverpool are currently sitting top of the league, 2 points ahead of Man City. Man City do have a game in hand still, but I'd much rather have the points on the board than a game in hand. However, if Man City were to win that game in hand, they would technically go top. So Liverpool are going to want to keep up winning games and staying top of the league. In Liverpool's last 5 Premier League games, they have drawn 1 and won 4, most recently beating Southampton 3-1. And Liverpool also beat Porto 2-0 last night in the first leg of their Champions League quarter-final. And now they're going to play Chelsea this weekend, and then they've got more Champions League next week. So as I say, there's so many games. There's a lot to think about with, do players need a rest or whatever? And I know Man City are doing the exact same thing. They're both fighting for the Champions League. They're both fighting for the Premier League. Man City are also fighting for the FA Cup final as well. But I would say Man City have got a depthier squad than Liverpool do. So they're just hoping that there's no injuries and there's no burnouts coming up. But I imagine they're going to play their full-strength team against Chelsea as well, because they've got to. As for Chelsea, they have jumped up into 3rd in the Premier League. As I've been talking about for ages, the fight for Champions League spaces continues. Chelsea have moved up into 3rd, 2 points ahead of Spurs, who are in 4th. 3 points ahead of Arsenal, who are in 5th, and 5 points ahead of Man U, who are in 6th. Chelsea have played one more game than those other teams I've just mentioned, but as I said earlier, points on the board is better than points in hand, if that's right. Chelsea's last 5 games in the Premier League, they've lost 1, they've drawn 1 and they've won 3, most recently beating West Ham 2-0. And Chelsea also have a game this week in their Europa League quarter-final on Thursday, and then play Liverpool at the weekend, and then they play in their Europa League the following week as well. So again, there's a lot of football going on right now. As for a prediction, I think it's going to be a tight game. I mean, if you want to look at it one way, Liverpool had their Champions League game on Tuesday. Chelsea have got their Europa League game on Thursday. So Liverpool have actually had a couple of days extra rest than Chelsea will have done for this game. Liverpool are at home. Premier League form has been better for Liverpool in the last 5 games than it has been for Chelsea. But at the end of the day, it's one of those. I mean, it's almost impossible to predict some of these games, and I think this is going to be a really tight one. I'm hoping for goals like everyone else is. It's on the telly. I'm hoping it's going to be a good watch, and I'm going to sit on the fence pretty much, and I'm going to go 2-2. And yeah, just hoping it's going to be a good game. And to finish things off on the Monday night, so we've got football from the Friday, Saturday, Sunday and Monday. We have got Watford taking on Arsenal. Watford currently sitting in 10th place. As I mentioned, still fighting for that 7th place spot with the other 3 teams. And congratulations to Watford, because they are now in the final of the FA Cup against Man City. Obviously, that's going to be a very tough game. But as I mentioned as well, Man City are also fighting for Champions League and the Premier League. So Watford could really see this as their chance to maybe catch them off guard. I don't know. Man City are, I mean, they're a very, very good side. It's going to be a very tough game for Watford. But, you know, again, on the day, who knows what could happen. But as for Watford in the Premier League, in their last 5 games, they've lost 3 and they've won 2. I mean, the games they lost were against some tough teams, Liverpool, Man City, Man U. And then the games they won, they beat Leicester. And then the most recent game, they also beat Fulham as well. So a few wins, they'll be on a high from getting to the FA Cup final. They're at home, but it's going to be tough against Arsenal, who, as I mentioned earlier, currently sitting 5th in the league, and they're definitely going to want to try and grab 3 points to move back up into those Champions League spots. Arsenal's recent form in the Premier League, their last 5 games, they've won 3, they've drawn 1 and they've lost 1. The loss was the most recent game when they lost 1-0 against Everton at the weekend. And Arsenal have also got more football coming up as well. They've got their Europa League game on Thursday night. So, quarter-final of the Europa League. I suppose it's a bit of a longer break playing on the Monday. Normally they play on the Thursday, then play on the Sunday. But Watford have had a much longer rest than what Arsenal will get. As for a prediction, I think Watford will be on a high after getting through to the FA Cup final. They've also won their last game against Fulham 4-1. Arsenal lost their Premier League game. I mean, if they go and win their first leg of the Europa League on Thursday, maybe that would give them a good buzz ready for the Monday night game. Watford are at home, but I do think Arsenal have got a better team, a better squad. And as I mentioned, they want that Champions League spot very much. So I'm going to back Arsenal. I'm going to go 2-0. I think it'll be a good game again, but I'm going to, yeah, back the away team on that one. And that's it, guys. I hope you have enjoyed the video. Those are my predictions up there, so make sure to get your predictions down in the comments below. I go through all of them before the first game kicks off, which this week is on Friday at 8 o'clock. So you've got tonight, all of tomorrow, all of Friday up until 5 to 8 when I make a note of everyone's scores. And as I say, I will shout out the winner in next week's video. But yeah, as always, guys, hope you've enjoyed the video. Have a great week, have a great weekend. Fingers crossed for Newcastle on Friday night. But thank you for watching, and I'll catch you later.